Hi, we're here today with Cynthia McKinney. How you doing today?
Well, I'm doing great, and I'm excited to answer your questions. This is the first time that I have been asked to be interviewed by a science project. So this is great for me, and it's a first.
Excellent. So, the Green Party's core issue is the protection of the environment. To what degree do you feel that STEM efforts such as space technology and exploration has contributed to progress on that issue over the past half century?
Uh-oh. For some reason, I didn't get that.
Oh,
Space exploration and the Green Party. Let me pull up the question so I can see.
okay.
Okay. Space technology and
Yeah.
exploration has contributed to progress on the issue of the environment over the past half century.
Yeah.
Well, quite frankly, if I could respond maybe in an opposite way, and of course, I don't have the background that you have because you have been studying this issue for a very long time.
Mhm.
But it seems to me that a certain segment of the population who are very wealthy and who are able to conduct private space exploration are exactly the same people who have completely despoiled the planet as it is today. And so the last thing that we need is for Homo sapiens to go off exploring in the rest of the world, the rest of the universe, and do the same thing all over again, not having learned the lessons of sustainability and most importantly, respect for other life forms, respect for even um, fellow human beings. So we haven't learned that lesson on planet Earth, and I would certainly hope that our species not take the bad practices to other places in the universe.
I see. Um, okay. And as a social democratic party, the Green Party supports large investments in government programs aimed at promoting the general welfare. Do you feel that increased investment in exploration fits in with that goal?
Well, the problem with NASA is, my understanding is that after I left the Congress, NASA was placed under the Pentagon. And so that means that the mission of NASA is no longer space exploration, but conducting war, which is what the Pentagon does, and killing, which is also what the Pentagon does. And they will do it from a platform in space. That I disagree with. There was a time when, under President Kennedy, for example, when space was the new frontier, and all of us were glued to our television sets as we looked at Star Trek and learned the lessons of Star Trek and the prime directive of non-interference in the development of other species anywhere in the universe. And that is exactly the opposite of what the Pentagon's mission is. And so therefore, I disagree with placing NASA under the Pentagon, and I disagree with anything that NASA might do while it is under the Pentagon.
I see. So, what would your position be on colonizing other planets? Whether that should be a government-backed program, a private venture, or even if it should be done at all?
Well, I think that would be a huge technological advance. And so I don't see anything wrong with it. But again, I'm not convinced that the leaders of today, the leadership that is currently in place is capable of doing anything good, not only for the people of this planet, but for any purposes outside of this planet as well. So I think, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, that we need a revolution of values. I think we, the people, need a revolution of values. Look at what we've got now on the precipice of the presidency of the United States. It's either the warmonger, country destroyer, Hillary Clinton, or it's Donald Trump, whose policy pronouncements have been encouraging in terms of the war machine and all of that, but at the same time been discouraging when it comes to the, perceived racial slights. And in fact, if we look at just exactly his track record over the years, we see an uneasiness about this issue of race. Imagine that compounded with other species. So I think, well, heck, species on the planet, let alone species off the planet. So at this point, I have no confidence in the current leadership. And therefore, I just think that we need a timeout. We, the people of the United States, need a timeout so that we can reassess who our leadership is, what our leadership stands for, who we are as a country and as a people, and what it is that we stand for. Because if Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump represent what we, the people of the United States, stand for, I think that we are in serious trouble.
Yeah, I'd actually agree with that. But if you were had a chance to create a space colony based on your own principles, what would your ideal colony look like? That's a question from one of my viewers.
Okay, what would it look like? Well, it would be sort of egalitarian in structure, so that in terms of leadership, we would, everyone, how can I put this? I believe everyone has leadership skills in some area. And so then we would both lead and follow in terms of the structure of the society. And those who are able to do certain tasks better, then that's what they would do. They would lead where they have expertise. And we would have a certain code of conduct so that the best in human beings is expected and rewarded. We also would live in harmony with the environment, so that it's not about degrading that environment, but harnessing the power of that environment in order to uplift the colony as a whole. So that's kind of what it would look like, and that's kind of what I would like to see here on this planet. And I would like to see a kind of leadership structure that recognizes the dignity of everyone, that is not interested in killing and taking over control of everything and everybody, and figuring out how to monetize or derive profit from the human and natural resources, not look at everything, whether it's illness or health, as a profit center, but look at everything as an opportunity to do good.
Excellent. So, what's your position on STEM education and encouraging more opportunities for STEM careers?
Well, of course, as a person who searches the internet for everything science fiction, I'd have to say yes, of course, because, you know, in many sci-fi movies, it is the scientist that wins the day. And it is the scientist as juxtaposed to the evil government, right? It's the brilliant scientist who's misunderstood and not appreciated by the governmental authorities. And so, but it is that usually that same brilliant scientist that is able to understand what is happening and fashion a strategy to resolve and save humanity, sort of thing. And so, of course, this is, even in our culture, a glorification of STEM education, and I think something to be appreciated.
Excellent. And here's a question from my audience. Should the topics such as critical thinking, logic, and civics be required topics in school, and at what grade level do you think they should be introduced?
Very good question. We have reached the lowest point, the denouement, I believe, of U.S. education. And, you know, you've got countries like India that are just churning out scientists. And so I think the United States has a long way to go in improving its systems of management and governance. So one of the things, though, when you have a small group of people who have their own pecuniary interests in mind as they leverage the power of government and, of course, the military on their own personal behalf, then what is not needed is a critical thinking populace. What's needed is people who basically do what they're told and who don't think beyond what the rather limited acceptable political discourse is. And that's exactly what we've got now. So I think we need to enhance critical thinking. You're absolutely right. That's why I'm not in the Congress now, because I was taught to think critically and to analyze critically. Now, in my education, I was given that wonderful, glorious tool, and I learned to question everything and everyone, including those so-called powers that be, to question them if I see something that doesn't fit. So, for example, 911 didn't fit, or the election of it wasn't even an election, really. The election results of 2000 with the presidential election. And so I see something that's wrong and I speak out about it. Well, that's not accepted, because speaking out is not a part of the acceptable political discourse of today, where you've got a very small group of people who are basically in charge of the political process, and that affects the economy as well. So STEM education, critical thinking, civics is critical. We've got people who live in towns and they don't even know the name of the mayor. They don't know their state representative. They don't know the difference between the responsibilities of the state legislature and that of the Congress. I used to receive phone calls because people were upset that their trash didn't get picked up. And so we desperately need civics started at a very early age, so that young people understand the rights as well as the responsibilities. We also need our citizens to have a thorough understanding of the Constitution, because the Constitution, quite frankly, this is what they've done to the Constitution. And so to the Bill of Rights. This is something that is absolutely unacceptable. And the only thing that can change it is the concerted effort of the people. And that means all of us being organized, mobilized, and acting on behalf, at least with critical mass, toward this kind of change.
Awesome. So, what do you think of criticism of No Child Left Behind from people who say it should be scrapped altogether?
Well, I have to admit that that was one of the votes on which I was kind of hoodwinked, because the Democrats said, vote for No Child Left Behind, and then we'll do something better, right? And so I listened to the Democratic leadership. This was before I realized how corrupt the Democratic Party leadership is. But so I listened to the leadership and the leadership on the Education Committee, and that had instructed us to vote for No Child Left Behind, which was George W. Bush's basic, one of his fundamental pieces of legislation. And I was surprised that the Dems had rolled over so easily, but I didn't really think about it because I didn't serve on the Education Committee. And so those members of the Democratic caucus who served on the Education Committee, I presumed that they had done the fixing, the tweaking that was necessary to warrant a yes vote. But unfortunately, No Child Left Behind was decried by the very people who are responsible for the education of our children, and that's the teachers. And so I think it needs to be revamped. I think it needs to, quite frankly, I wouldn't mind if it were just thrown out altogether and we start all over again.
Awesome. And this is my final question. What would you like humankind to have accomplished in 100 years and in 1,000 years?
Whoa, that's hard for me to, well, in 1,000 years, I hope humankind has learned to live with each other. And unfortunately, because of the divide and rule and the manipulation and the visions of conquest, it might take 1,000 years for us to love each other, understand each other. We don't necessarily have to agree all of the time, but we need to respect each other.
Yeah, well, that's all I've got. Anything you'd like to add?
Well, I think you've covered a lot, and maybe we can do this again in the future. I look forward to interacting with your viewers and with you again. I really appreciate you asking me to join you.
Thanks. You know how to get a hold of me if you ever decide to run for office again.
Well, you know what? That's in the back of my mind for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And I look forward to next time.
Okay.